Hey folks, VM Explorer here, and this is VMware Daily Tip number 3. In this particular tip, we're going to talk about the blog post that recently come out, understanding the vSphere 7 changes to the boot bank. So let's take a look at this blog real quick and some of the highlights that you might want to look at. First off is just the awareness of this blog. You should definitely read this. Why should you read this? Great question. You should read this because if either you're building a brand new host or perhaps you're upgrading an old host, some of the requirements have changed, especially in the boot bank. There's different guidance for vSphere 7 around this. Okay. There are upgrade considerations. There are size considerations. There are type of boot drive considerations that you might want to make yourself aware of. So if you're building or upgrading an ESXi host, I highly recommend you start by reading this blog post and then going through some of the other requirements. Now, let's take a look at some of the items that are changed. Here's the old layout. Okay. There's a lot of different banks here, and as you can see, there's different boot banks 1 and 2. There's different cores and lockers, etc., scratch partitions, and then the remaining was left over for particular for VMFS data store. We've made some changes. We've consolidated a lot of those things and have changed a lot of these cores and scratch dump partitions and put it into an ESX OS data layer. Okay, and then they go on to explain where those things now reside. Storage sizes have also changed. It's considerate of the boot size, might determine what it is going to do. As an example, if you have a drive, a boot disk that is less than 128 gigs, it's not going to make a VMFS data store anymore. So if you had an old 60 gig boot drive that you were using and you're hoping that it had a little bit of space left over because you wanted to use that as a VMFS data store, it's not going to do that anymore. It needs to be 128 gig or larger for it to actually do that, and they go on to explain that here. Okay. Furthermore, they explain where all the different locations are going to be inside the OS data layer. Okay, they tell you where all the different VARs and lockers, and they're all there. They're just categorized into one partition now, basically, right? You can go through and look at different review the storage layouts. They talk about that, and then finally they start talking about the boot media. So please pay special attention to this area right here. If you're upgrading ESXi 6 to 7, requires a boot drive minimum of 4 gigs. Please review the hardware requirements here. Okay, so as always, do your homework, but be aware that this article, this blog post is out here. Take the time to read it. Take the time to go through it and understand it before you start doing those upgrades. And with that, that's the end of today's tip. I hope this has helped out. If you have any suggestions or comments on this particular tip, please post them in the comments below and do hit subscribe. Thank you for your time.